This is Mark Walmer, an attorney with 35 years experience in the criminal justice system of Pennsylvania, and I wanted to do a short video on how to research and review Pennsylvania criminal records, and also get into a little bit of how to research the UJS portal. Some of the things we're going to cover are why pardons and expungements matter. Those are the only ways of clearing a record in Pennsylvania. Some myths about criminal records, the two primary remedies, how to read dispositions, whether they're convictions or not, and how criminal charges are graded. Moving into how to research a record with an overview of the expungement process. Record sealing under Act 5 is covered in a different presentation. The reason why pardons and expungements are so important is because 1 in 3 Americans have criminal records. Half of all the children in the US have at least one parent with a criminal record. 3.8 million Pennsylvanians have criminal records, and it just flatlines a person's earning capacity for decades, literally decades. It affects their ability to get employment, housing, public benefits, education, occupational licenses, affects their ability to sit on juries, obviously their immigration status, and it's a huge social stigma. It also matters because 87% of employers, 80% of landlords, and 2/3 of all colleges ask or conduct criminal record background checks. Many of them don't care how old the criminal conduct is. They simply use it against the applicant. A lot of background checks are done by private companies, and frankly, I don't know anybody that really knows what they're doing. They can be inaccurate. They're only updated once a year. If a person is disqualified for something under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, they're allowed to ask for a copy of the disqualifying report. There are also a slew of misstatements out there about the myth that criminal records will sometimes lapse or that criminal records erase themselves. This is further compounded by the fact that Pennsylvania's clean slate legislation has made records harder to find, but they are not expunged or disappeared. They are simply harder to find. One of the myths is that ARD, non-conviction dispositions, are automatically expunged. Some counties do, some counties don't. And employers and landlords, it's assumed that they know the difference between a charge, which is an allegation, and a conviction, which is a finding of guilt. It also gets into the grading of the offense. There's 2 primary remedies. Pardons are necessary to remove any misdemeanor or felony conviction. If it is a misdemeanor or a felony conviction, it requires a pardon from the governor before it can be expunged. The expungement statute only allows the removal of non-convictions, of summaries, misdemeanors, and felonies. If it was a conviction, you need a pardon. If they were charges that were brought that were subsequently withdrawn or null prost or dismissed, then they can be expunged. And findings of guilt on summary offenses can be expunged after 5 years without incident. ARD, Act 17, 586 dispositions, all are specific dispositions that refer to the likelihood that there was probation without a conviction or not a permanent conviction. Expungements also allow the removal of an underage consumption summary citation after the person's 21st birthday. Juvenile records are eligible for expungement after the age of 21 with certain disqualifications, but they need to be personally reviewed. And the rule that misdemeanor and felony convictions have to be pardoned first is waived in the case of somebody who's reached the age of 70 who has been off of any kind of supervision for 10 years, their misdemeanors and felonies can proceed directly to an expungement. Dispositions. Convictions are things where somebody pled guilty or were found guilty or pled nolo contendere, which is really the same as guilt. Non-conviction language has to do with dismissals, withdrawals, null process, not guilties, successful completion of ARD, or if there's a case that was brought as an allegation or a charge, and there's no disposition on the case after 18 months. Some of the grading that persons will run into is that felonies in Pennsylvania are the most serious. These are all Pennsylvania definitions. Felonies go from felony 1 to felony 2 to felony 3. They're followed in less severity by misdemeanors of the first degree and the second degree and the third degree. And then eventually summary offenses are the very smallest offenses that are not misdemeanors or felonies. The way the grading of the crimes happens is they're graded on the maximum possible penalty that you could face, not the sentence that someone actually gets, but the maximums. You could get probation for a felony 3 if it was a nonviolent offense, but your maximums could be up to 7 years in jail and a $15,000 fine. So here are the maximum jail and the maximum fines. It's only relevant to the grading of the offense. Most of the gradings will actually show up on the criminal records, and they can be read right from there. Summary offenses are like tickets, like speeding tickets or traffic tickets, but they're written under the crimes code. The most popular summary offenses are retail theft, underage consumption, harassment, disorderly conduct. They're usually just a fine and court costs. How to find a criminal record. There's 2 court levels in Pennsylvania. The magisterial district court level, which is where all criminal charges start. They start at the district justice level, and the district judge is in charge of having preliminary hearings on all misdemeanors or felonies. If the judge is satisfied that the charges are adequate and appropriate, they will send misdemeanor and felonies to the Court of Common Pleas for final disposition. The district judge is allowed to take pleas of guilt on summary offenses and misdemeanors of the 3rd degree. Okay? So these 2 levels are typically referred to as MDJ and CP. The MDJ level, and then the larger court is the Court of Common Pleas. We're going to start by researching on the UJS portal, which is at ujsportal.pacourts.us. We're going to look under the criminal searches for summaries, misdemeanors, and felonies. We could look under the miscellaneous dockets for indirect criminal contents and expungements. And we could look at the district justice level for criminal summaries and misdemeanors. I'm going to switch now, and hopefully you're now looking at the UJS portal. The UJS portal, we go here for case information under case search. And usually the search is by name, but you can see here there's a wide category of things you can search for. Participant's name allows you to search for the last name. I'm going to search for Kathleen Kane. And here you get to search for criminal, non-traffic, or traffic. Those are the ones that are going to pull up criminal records. And then you just hit search. When you're looking at this screen, reading from left to right, the first row we can see this is a magisterial justice docket. And this is the docket number on the left. It says magisterial court, has the name of the defendant, the case status, the filing date, the participant's name. Notice here it has the date of birth. So we have actually pulled up at least 3 different Kathleen Kanes because their dates of birth are different. So I'm going to refine our search to enter the date of birth of the one I was interested in. And now we can see records only pertaining to her. The first 2 records are the MDJ records on 2 dockets. Cases 3 and 4 are the common pleas level. I think they're related. And if I come over here to the OTN column, I can see that the OTN of one of the MDJ cases ends in 0322. I can see that turned into the common pleas docket ending with 0322. Similarly, I can see that the MDJ case 298 of 2015 has an OTN ending in 3802, which then turned into this common pleas docket 6239 of 2015. So these are really 2 cases that traveled from the MDJ level to the Court of Common Pleas level. This OTN is very important to notice. It unifies cases across the district judge level to the common pleas level. We can also see that all these charges are from Montgomery County. Finally, on the right, there's the temple, which will give us a court summary, and a docket, which will give us the specific docket sheet for that OTN. I personally always come down to the common pleas icons. And if we click on the temple or the courthouse here, it will call up this summary. This summary shows, first of all, it shows a record that has an MD in it. On the top left, CP 35MD, that indicates a miscellaneous docket. It was probably a transfer of a case for courtesy supervision to Lackawanna County. It is not the court of conviction, and there is no disposition showing. And so I move on from there. This Montgomery County docket, 6239 of 2015, OTN ending in 6380-2, shows guilty dispositions under charges described as felonies of the 3rd degree and misdemeanors of the 2nd degree. The charges were perjury, false swearing, and obstruction of administration of justice. But as soon as we see felony 3 and misdemeanor convictions, we know this is a case that will eventually need a pardon. Whether it is sooner or rather it is later depends on review by the Board of Pardons. At this point, we're just researching and analyzing records. Traveling down here, and be careful because these court summaries travel across split pages and it's easy to lose the beginning of a case like this one. CP 46, CR 8423 of 2015. OTN ending in 9032-2. Travel down below and we can see that here is another different felony 3 perjury and a finding of guilt, a misdemeanor 2nd degree false swearing. Excuse me. And so again, we have misdemeanor and felony convictions. They're going to need pardoned before they can ever be expunged. Just to jump up here to the docket sheet for one of those. Now, when I hit docket, the court summary showed us both cases. The docket under 8423 of 2015 is only going to show you the docket sheet for 8423 of 2015. And so here, if you scroll down through, you can read the history of the case, which is based on all of the filings and the computer entries that went into the Court of Common Pleas Clerk of Court's office. We can see that bail was set and posted. We can see that here is where the Magisterial District Court had a preliminary hearing and held the case for Common Pleas Court. This shows the guilty plea at the Court of Common Pleas level. This shows us that some sentences were consecutive to other sentences, which isn't all that important right now. This is where you can see the attorneys that were involved in the case. Perhaps more importantly, at the end of this docket sheet, after all of the court filings, which you're welcome to spend time with if you want to, but I'm going to go to the bottom because what I want to know is were all the fines and costs and restitution paid in full. And if this bottom line here indicates zeros, then everything has been paid in full. If I go back to this other docket and I click on that case, we'll be able to see all of the court records related to 6239 of 2015. So these are the specific docket entries of the two different dockets. And again, we can spend more time later. The important thing is that it's a felony or a misdemeanor conviction. It's going to need a pardon. We could come up here and we could also search for non-traffic cases, which is where some of those summary offenses would show up. Ms. Kane does not have any of those. We could also search for traffic tickets, and there are none of those. And so, so that's a beginning of how to research, read, and review a criminal history. There will be other videos about an overview of the expungement process. You can always find me, Mark Walmer, at recorderacer.net or Mark at candelegal.com or Mark at recorderacer.net. That concludes this video presentation and PowerPoint presentation. Feel free to email me with any questions. Thank you.